Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I never wanted to talk about 5 things that we learned when it could have been 5 Carabao Cups in a row. But this is where we're at and we've got to face the music, unfortunately. City crashed out the Carabao last night on penalties to West Ham. And I'm going to take a little bit of a closer look at that game and talk about what I felt was interesting from that night. There's, of course, loads of talking points, and this isn't a definitive list by any stretch of the imagination. And do let me know down in the comments what you took from the game. But this is the things that I noticed. Before I do that, I'd like to say thank you to my latest Patreons. I've got 4 new Patreons to talk about that I've been waiting for a shout out. I've got Justin Young on the $3 tier. Big love to Justin Young and the wonderfully named Berto Lee. Bert name, Bert in nature. Love it, Berto. Thank you so much for the support. And the $10 month tier, we've got Sean Lumsden and Stephen Duchin, or Duckin. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, mate. But either way, Sean, Justin, Berto, and Stephen, spelled the correct way, of course. Well done, mate. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. It's massively appreciated. Patreon.com/Esteemed Company if you want to help support out me a little bit. This is my full-time job. This is what I do for a living, and every little penny counts, so thank you so much. Especially when you've just paid for a wedding, which is devastatingly expensive, and a house. You pay for a mortgage, thank you so much. It's not an expensive mortgage, don't get me wrong. It's, it's bang average. But thank you, anyway, is what I'm trying to say. Patreon.com/Esteemed Company. You don't have to. Just watching these videos and just liking and all that kind of stuff is the support that I need anyway. So thank you so much to everyone who carries on watching. We're going to start initially with this 5 things learned. With that, I guess that it was inevitable. And what I mean by that is all good things kind of have to come to an end, unfortunately, at some point. Not me and Nicola, though. Forever. Right? Never mind, she didn't hear me. I said all good things must have come to an end at some point. It's like, no, Rusto, forever. This thing doesn't. But Manchester City's love affair with the Carabao unfortunately came to an end, and it was kind of inevitable. And obviously, I think it was always going to happen when we went for the record as well. Like, winning it twice in a row is hard. 3 times, incredible. 4 times, unbelievable. 5 times, well, excuse me. Well, it seemed unrealistic a little bit, especially given the constraints on the modern game and given the demands on these players. And I guess we also had to accept it as part of the natural course of time and all that kind of stuff. You can't win every competition every single year, but Manchester City have made a very good job of doing that in the Carabao Cup, and this is just one of those things that we have to accept, really. But what I will say about that is the passing of time means other things are inevitable as well. Just because we haven't won the Carabao this year, it probably means we're getting closer to one day winning the Champions League. And I do think that's inevitable, personally, presuming the investment carries on. And that's not arrogance in my behalf. I think it's just a logical outcome of a club that's got some of the best players in the world is being invested in constantly. At some point we're going to. So as much as one thing hurts, another thing, as time passes, becomes more likely, in my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with that, but I think the path and trajectory we're on, well, things become inevitable, both positive and negative. Second thing I want to talk about, I put with a terrible pun because I'm Yadar sometimes. Cole Palmer instead of Cole Palmer. Yep, I went there, Cole Palmer. And what I mean by that is I could have put Gold Palmer or Gold Palmer, but I put Cole Palmer for a reason, because the lad genuinely has nerves of steel, and I really like that. I mean, there was an article midweek, I think it might be by Jack Gordon in the Telegraph, where he talked about how the players around the first team have been really impressed how calm and composed Cole Palmer is. It's sticking already with me. Recently in training, how he doesn't fear anyone. And I thought Cole Palmer last night was the one major positive from last night's game. Honestly, I was really impressed with him. Probably more impressed than most people, and not because I'm easily impressed or anything like that, but it's just because I genuinely thought the confidence in his performance belied his youthful years. He's only a guy who's made a handful of appearances for the first team, and last night he started there, and honestly, you wouldn't have known he wasn't a first-team regular. The quality of his performance, the most interesting bit of skill last night from Manchester City player, probably both of them came from Cole Palmer. Lovely little jinking runs. I mean, one where he kind of span that half turn that Phil Foden has made really famous, and that James McAtee can do as well. There's something in the water at the CFA. But anyway, one little half turn when he fed in Gundogan for a very good chance, and then one when he spanned, hit a 1-2 with Sterling. Lovely bits of football. They're genuinely really good bits of football, and I'm starting to feel that maybe, actually his route to the top, I'm not saying he's going to reach Phil Foden's level in terms of ceiling limit, but I think he might get to being useful around the first team a little bit quicker than Phil Foden took, because for one, he's a little bit older than when Phil Foden first got around the first team. He was 17, he's 19, Cole Palmer. He's definitely bigger at the same stage of their development, and I feel like he's just his natural game. There's a confidence to him, and he's not kind of deferential to his teammates, and I mean that in a good way. Some young players, like Phil Foden, they kind of towed the line for a bit, and you want him to go for it a bit more. And Foden does that now, but initially when Foden came into the team, was very calm and very composed, played the simple passes, but rarely kind of went for the dribbles. Whereas Cole Palmer, I get the impression he's just a little bit more arrogant, and I think that's going to help him in his development into first team football. And I don't mean arrogant in a bad way, I meant in a self-belief kind of way. A massive positive for me, and I would not be surprised if we see him start a couple more times this season. I would hope so, actually. I would hope so. The third thing I want to talk about is Kevin De Bruyne. We need to talk a little bit about Kevin De Bruyne. Unfortunately, he's not in good form at the moment. Now, how much do we read into Kevin De Bruyne's form? How much of it's just circumstantial? How much of it will be here in a few months' time? I don't really know the answer. What I will say, I'll always advise caution with these things because Kevin De Bruyne is too good a footballer to write off, too intelligent a footballer to presume not to be able to adapt to any potential injury problems. And in general, he's not old enough to worry immensely yet. But there are some causes of concerns. We can't deny that his form at the moment isn't great. I know he's getting the odd goal and assist here and there as well, which is classic Kevin De Bruyne, but he does look a little bit cumbersome. He looks a little bit slow on the ball. He looks a little bit clunky with his movements, and his passing is kind of sloppy, if we're being totally honest. And I'm hoping the quality's still there. Of course the quality's still there, but will his body catch up to him? We don't know yet. What I would say is that give him a little bit of time. Many great players have had to adapt their game, and they still end up being brilliant, even though they're not quite as bombastic as they once were. David Silva's game changed a little bit at times. I know Vincent Kompany's did. He had to conserve his energy a little bit more as he got older, but he was still very useful at times. And Kevin De Bruyne, he's had an awful lot of injuries. I kind of feel sorry for the guy. I mean, he's been battered from pillar to post. Genuinely, he's been kicked to pieces, unfortunately. Like the injuries he's had, he's been elbowed in the face, he's had knee injuries, he's had ankle injuries. He just looks like he's moving unnaturally at the moment, and I do wonder, if he's fully fit, is he going to need ankle surgery, something like that soon? I don't know, but what I'm going to say is let's give him a little bit of time. If Guardiola does decide that the best way to get Kevin De Bruyne fit and firing is to play him, well, Guardiola's Guardiola, and he's earned our trust in that front. I'm going to be patient, but I don't think the concerns are unwarranted. It doesn't mean they're founded yet, but I don't think they're unwarranted at the same time. We'll have to see, I guess. The one thing we learned is that actually now it could be a minor positive that we're out this competition. We've had an awful lot of Carabao film, man. We've had an awful lot of it, and now we've got a little bit of rest time. We can't deny the impact that's going to have on our schedule. I mean, we've got a few less games to play this season now, potentially, and that will be good during the winter months when the schedule gets really, really hectic and the players are really, really tired and they need a bit of a rest. And it means when we've got some big games coming up, we won't have as many midweek games, and that is kind of essential. I'm going to miss this competition, don't get me wrong, but those players being sharp, fit and rested, that is massive for us, and it could help us in other competitions. Of course it could. I mean, it doesn't affect some, because obviously it's normally over by the business end of the season, but it definitely will. I mean, less game times is simply less chances to get injured. So that you have to bear that in mind too, and maybe we'll be sharper around Christmas and all that kind of stuff, which is good for me. Finally, I want to talk about some minor winger woes, unfortunately. I think there's different problems for both of the wingers who played last night. I think Morris, unfortunately, he's not in his best form at the moment. Having said that, Morris can blow hot and cold every now and then. At the moment, he's probably not done enough to get in the team. However, the caveat is that Morris hasn't really played a run of games this season, which is a totally fair thing to point out. And you should always defend the players if they haven't had that run of games, which they need to get up to full fitness and sharpness and so on. But he isn't playing that great, unfortunately. I think he's going to struggle to kind of... I know he scored a couple recently in a game, but last night I thought nothing went well for him. He's had a couple of games like that recently, but I'm not concerned about Mahrez, but I think he's in one of those patches that he can go for every now and then. But obviously the bigger concern is Sterling. I mean, I thought Sterling looked a little bit lively last night, and I do agree with Guardiola, but he's still struggling. He's still doing a little bit too much. He's still running into people, and of course we've got a situation where we don't really know if these two are they going to be long-term options anymore. Like Mahrez getting on a little bit, he's here now, but he might be not here in 2 years. Sterling might not be here in 2 years either. We started to think, well, we've potentially got a little bit of a winger situation coming up. It could be Grealish and Foden and Silva on the left, but then who on the right? Gabriel Jesus, maybe, but is he going to be the long-term right-winger option? I can't see it. Not in a negative way, but he doesn't strike me as our long-term right-winger option, Jesus. Right for now, but I don't know. Is he going to be a world-class right winger? Maybe, maybe not. But it's something to keep an eye on. I'm not overly concerned right now, but I definitely think it's something to keep an eye on. And Mahrez, not in his best form right now, I would say. Sterling is still Raheem Sterling of the past year and a half, which isn't great. I did think there was a bit of energy from Sterling last night, but I'd love to see a little bit more. Guys, that's what I took from the game last night. Let me know, of course, in the comments below how you're feeling. Are you over the game last night? It was painful. The penalty shootout It's not for us penalties, is it? There's loads more to talk about as well. We could talk about how we missed Bernardo, but then we know that anyway. How we missed Rodri to an extent. I thought Stones had a decent game. We talk about Zinchenko and all that kind of stuff. But this is what I took from the game. Thank you so much to my latest patrons, Justin, Berto, Sean, and Stephen, absolute legends. And thank you, of course, to all the names currently scrolling down the side of the screen. I'll update the Patreon end board tomorrow. A bit tired today, but I'll do it. So all those names will be on there as well. Big love to my Patreon producer, Scott Denemy. Like, comment, subscribe. Get me to 60k. See you soon.